All right, we're recording and we're about to go live.
Hmm.
And I say this so that our YouTube viewers know that we're not just making faces at the camera until we go live. Here we go. What's up, fight fans, and welcome to episode 11 of Stoner versus Stoner. My name is Chino LaForge. There's no Stoner in my last name, which means you know my occupation more than my name. I'm a stand-up comedian as well as a fight enthusiast. Sitting next to me on that would be my right, your left, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and submission underground competitor Don Stoner. Introduce yourself, Don.
What's going on, fight fans of Stoner vs. Stoner, friends, family, and fellow fight fans? How's it going? Don Stoner. I'm a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu under Higa Machado, and I have my own school in Washougal, Washington, pretty close to Portland. So I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at my academy and watch every single fight, every single combat sport fight. So yeah, super excited to be with my brother, Chino LaForge.
What's up, everybody? Good to see you guys. For those of you just tuning in for the first time, Stoner versus Stoner. He's Don Stoner. I'm Chino LaForge, professional stoner. You got that. We decide to give you our picks for fights and our breakdowns and analyses. And that way, if you're a betting man or a woman, you can get your stats together. Or if you just want someone to talk MMA in front of you or with, we're those dudes. Now, from what I'm hearing, we tend to be a little bit more to the taste of deeper MMA fans. We're not exactly like your surface fans that are just into hype waves. What I like hype, but we tend to actually do deeper breakdowns and analysis of the game of MMA, specifically Don with the jiu-jitsu breakdowns and myself with striking breakdowns. We do our best to give you guys a total idea of what's going on inside the ring, not just inside the ring, but also outside the ring. We try to let you know what's going on a technical level as well as a political level, kind of. Jumping right into it, we had a UFC event that was UFC Fight Night, which was Watterson versus Hill. Great main event. Oh man, was that a good one? Just 5 rounds of absolute war. And I think you and I really broke down the pre-fight of that really well. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I think we were spot on with the analysis of Angela Hill and the karate hottie, Michelle Watterson. Angela Hill, in my perspective, Angela Hill was a point fighter. In everybody else's perspective, including Angela Hill, Michelle Watterson it was the point fighter. So it was a great fight. These two ladies went after it. Probably one of the fights of the year. I know I keep saying that, but man, that was, for me, that was one of the best fights of the year. I mean, we saw almost every sequence in grappling, striking, wrestling. It was hard for Michelle to take Angela down. I thought Michelle's best weapon would be her takedown. She's very good at jiu-jitsu. She was able to ground Angela Hill in the later rounds, and she got pretty darn close to an arm triangle. She always looks for the back. She was looking for the back with Angela, and Angela stood up out of that. So the MMA media was saying that it was 2 rounds of 2 rounds going into round 5. I actually thought it was 3-1 to Angela Hill. I thought Angela Hill was putting it on Michelle Watterson, but everybody was calling it 2-2. And that last round was Michelle Watterson turning it up. But again, I honestly think that was Angela Hill's fight. It wasn't the worst decision in the world, but I would have given it to Angela. but I'll take the win. I think I picked Karate Hottie, so I'll take the win.
Yeah, it was a great fight. We both ended up picking Karate Hottie, so we both saw that one kind of coming. At the same time, we both knew exactly what Angela Hill what she was going to have to do to make it a fight, which is exactly what she did. She went in there, she made it dirty, she clinched up, she made sure to close the distance, and really roughed her up anytime that they got into close proximity. But Michelle Waterson did a great job using that poke kick, that side kick she throws. She did a great job squaring out her body so that Angela really only got a partial profile look at her, which when it comes to wrestling will give you a benefit. But when it comes to trying to close the distance and striking, it really puts you at odds because you really only see about a third of the body that you can hit. So Waterson did a great job keeping that back foot behind her. She didn't square up in a kickboxing stance for most of the fight. She took it to her from her karate stance and threw a lot of switch foot combos. And those are really good for disrupting any fighter's pace or any of their momentum coming in, because not only are you changing your stance and giving them a different look, but you're also literally doubling the distance that you're able to cover when you throw what used to be a cross is now a jab. And it still has some of that cross power to it because it has that switch foot momentum. Angela Hill did a great job staying in the pocket and just getting her digs in. I mean, she outstruck her for the first 3 rounds. You're right about that. I think the takedown might have swayed that one round a little bit heavier. But no, I agree. And Dana said it best. He said this is one of those fights where, there really are no losers. The fans won. Both fighters put on a great performance, and the UFC wins because they just generated more buzz. I know what you mean with Fight of the Year. When we had Weili and JJ happen so early in the year, it's like, how do we even decipher a possible Fight of the Year candidate other than the fact that I feel like we probably know it's going to be a women's fight? What do you think about that, Don?
Yeah. We forget about so many fights, right? I mean, when there was one fight a month happening, my little brain could take it. And now when there's one fight every single week, you start to forget. You're like, did this fight happen like last year or 2 years ago? But no, it really happened at the beginning of the year. So, 2 amazing fighters were able to show their skills. I really liked how Waterson landed 2 kicks that we never see in MMA, an axe kick and a side kick to the face. That was so cool to see because everybody who knows, who follows me, I'm into the old school kickboxing karate fighters. And that was just awesome to see. And when do you see somebody do a side kick to the face? But she did it in the last round as kind of a Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. The last 2 rounds, I think it was the end of round 4 when she threw the side kick to the face, end of round 5 when she threw the axe kick. So if I was to say who would do better against Weili, I think it would be Angela at the pace and how strong she is, how much she's evolved. She's older, she's 35, but she has less fight miles on her. So I would like to see either of those 4 ladies, JJ, Weili, Angela, and Waterson, mix it up with each other, and those are going to be awesome fights.
Oh, I agree, and I also agree that Waterson is not a good matchup, or opposite way. I think Weili's a really bad matchup for Waterson, strictly because we've seen what happens to Waterson when she fights a high pressure, high volume, high percentage fighter, like when a high pressure fighter. When she fought Esparza, we saw her get into a lot of trouble. We saw her backpedaling a lot because, when it comes to an intense forward pressure, we've seen how she reacts. But we've also seen her coaching make some adjustments because Angela Hill had a heavy pressure set and she handled it marvelously. So who knows? Maybe she's turning the corner. Maybe we're seeing a new Waterson, and maybe it's her championship run. So I'm excited to see what's to come for her. Before that fight, we had Azatar versus Kama Worthy. You had Kama Worthy. I had Azatar in a surprise victory. I'm not going to lie. That was very surprising. Were you surprised as I, Don?
Yes, I was so surprised. And I should have studied who Azatar was. This guy, he's like a tornado, man. he just went at it. It reminds me of the heavyweight fight when we thought that Rosenstrike was going to be able to stand up with Francis, and Francis just clobbered him. That's what it reminded me of, but in a lightweight fight. So Azatar is a guy that is going to come up, because Kamal Worthy was no slouch when I looked in some of his fights, came up to the contender. But when like Azatar, the way that he blitzed him, the volume of punches, it was just too much. It was just too much. I hope that guy got a bonus.
Yeah, I believe he actually did. Him and who was the other fighter? There was another fighter that had come in literally on a day's notice, and I believe it was Kevin Kroom. Yeah, and he came in and had a round 1 submission victory, and he's a prelim fighter, so we're not going to talk too much about the fight. But he had posted on his Twitter that he had $63 in his bank account the day of the fight. And all he was doing was trying to find a way to make it $64. Well, buddy, you got the submission of the night bonus. I believe he got a fight of the night bonus too from Dana. He decided, or no, he didn't get the fight of the night bonus, but he did get the submission victory bonus. He got the purse, and he got the bonus for taking the fight on short notice. So he's looking at a high 5-figure, maybe a 6-figure payout day. So congratulations to him. Talking about sealing the deal when you need it most. But as far as the fight goes that we saw between Azatar and Worthy, there's really not much to report other than Azatar is a total beast. You're right. The speed that he fought with, he's a part of a group of fighters coming from that specific, not area, but region, where there's just so much good talent that was untapped for so long. Now that the UFC and MMA has gone worldwide and the promotions have gone worldwide, not just the visual of it, but actually seeing its influence across the world, it's opened the door for a lot of these fighters that come from areas that otherwise wouldn't have fighters in their roster. And now they have some dominant fighters. What is there something in the water, Don? What do you think's going on with that?
Well, yeah. So he is, I think, originally from Israel, but he lives in Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
Morocco's known for Badr Hari's, the best, for a long time, the best kickboxer in the world. They have great kickboxing in Morocco, and those guys are very, very, very good stand-up fighters. I want to see Azatar against Michael Johnson. I want him to take a big leap. He's one of the guys that I actually want to say, I want to see him 2 levels up after that performance, and I think the UFC will probably do that. Just by the way that he fought, there's no reason to put him against another contender guy. He needs to fight someone where we can really see what his skills are.
I agree with you, Don, but that's a tall order. Michael Johnson on your debut top 15. I believe he's a top 15 fighter. I mean, shit. I
want to see him go.
Yeah, talk about a welcome. We'll talk about a welcoming to the top 15, because Michael Johnson is no slouch. Oh man, does he know how to deal with a good striker? His footwork is phenomenal, and he has fought against a lot of kickboxers. We saw how he's done with the Dutch footwork and how he's compromised that. So it'd be interesting to see how he does with that Moroccan stuff. Man, I do like that fight call. As scary as I think it is for Azatar, I know he's game. I know that wouldn't be a problem. Fight before that, we had Roxanne Modafferi and Andrea Lee. You called this one right. You had Modafferi. I had Lee. It was a great fight. Both women left everything out there. We saw a lot of pressure from both sides. We saw how great Modafferi is at taking damage and returning. She did a great job of maintaining composure when she had the momentum, lost it, and then gained it again. That's one of the hardest things in fighting that I remember. It's been a long time since I fought, but one of the hardest things that I remember is feeling like you're no longer controlling the fight and taking the control back. It's one thing to have control and maintain it throughout the distance of a fight. That's a good feeling, especially if you've out-trained your opponent. But the feeling of being underwater and having to come up is extremely difficult. A lot of people don't know what it's like to be pushed to a certain point where you're feeling like, all right, well, I can either push through this or I can give up. And these are honest dilemmas. And Modafferi showed that she had no quit in her whatsoever. She passed straight through that threshold and really poured it on at the end of that third round. How did you feel about that fight, Don?
I really enjoyed that fight. I took a Hail Mary choice with Modafferi. Andrea Lee is such a good striker. She had a lot of hype coming up in the rankings, and then I think she lost one, so she kind of lost some of that hype. But she's kind of like a Holly Holm type of fighter, very good on the feet, limited on the ground. But Modafferi reminds me of like the female Diego Sanchez. She comes in, a little bit reckless with her strikes. You know that she's not as seasoned with the strikes, but she sets everything up for the takedown. When I saw that she went for the takedown at the 2-minute mark, I was thinking that that was her strategy. Every round, go for a takedown at 2 minutes. So whether the first 3 minutes and then take down at the 2 minutes, and that was the deciding factor in the fight. I really liked how she had a point. At one time, she took down Andrea Lee, and then she landed in side control. She actually went back to half guard, and so that's a veteran high IQ martial arts move where they go back to half guard because they know that they can trap the leg with the half guard and the person can't explode out and they can pound it out. So that showed me that she really studied Andrea Lee. She knew Andrea Lee was explosive, but she wanted to be methodical and eke out the decision because she knew she wasn't going to finish her on her feet. I think that she could have probably finished her on the ground. I would have liked to see some more submission attempts from Roxy, but Roxy's post-fight speech was just like the best thing ever. I mean, she's a gamer. I don't know. I'm not in that world. She's an anime person or whatever, but she's
I believe we call them weebs. She's a weeb.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, dude. I mean, she just had the best. She's like, yeah, great. I'm the winner today.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. There's something about the women's fights where I don't know if it's because it's such a new thing or something in the post fights, but man, do I get worked up after seeing some of these ladies post fight interviews. Not so much of Modafferi since it was a fun one. That was more of like, I would take that on the lines of like an Israel Adesanya meme quote style. She just went a little too far into the nerd culture, I feel. But I mean, I'll still never forget when Amanda Nunes became the double champ and how choked up I got. And I was like feeling overwhelmed. And I was like looking at my friend, and he's got the same look on his face where he's chewing on his gums, trying to make sure that he's not going to squirt any tears in the middle of this bar too. It was awesome. It's awesome. It's adding a new layer and depth to MMA. And I really like where it's going. Plus, now you can watch MMA progressively with anybody. I remember it used to be you put on a UFC fight and somebody like, hey man, I got kids here. Like, come on, let's watch something else. Let's watch football where these grown men are getting, their legs broken and concussions and stuff. It's equally violent, but just more socially acceptable. Now with both with men and women fighting, we have a larger range of fans where less people are naying it. A lot more people are kind of seeing it as the multi-level sport that it's been designed to be. So that's awesome. Fight before that, we had Ed Herman and Mike Rodriguez. Technically, you called this fight, but I'm going to go ahead and say that I called this fight because I said that it would be Mike Rodriguez, second round, TKO. I didn't say knockout. I said TKO, and that's what this fight should have been. But the referee stopped the fight due to a groin strike that never happened, that never materialized. We went back to the footage. Replay isn't allowed in terms of illegal strike yet. So the referee couldn't use the replay as visual evidence. But as we had seen as fight fans, there was no shots to the groin. and he went down. Fight should have been called. Fight continued, and then Ed Herman ended up pulling out an amazing come from behind victory. All respect to Ed Herman. He did his job. When the ref said he was on foul time, he's like, cool, foul time. And then he came back, and he almost went down at the end of the second round too, but held on and came back in the third round and landed an awesome Kimura. I was really surprised that Mike Rodriguez allowed that leg to be pushed back for him to secure it, because he had his leg pinned in his arm, but I don't think that he kind of realized it. I don't know how high level his jiu-jitsu is, but I don't know, Don. I'm at a loss here. I'm frustrated.
So, quick question. So when I'm 2-3 and you're 3-2, did you rig that? Because but really you should have won that. So technically I'm 3-2.
No. These scores reflect the way that the judges score it. As much as I disagree with it, as much as it pains me, I can take a loss. I mean, if last month showed us anything, it's that I could take a loss, because you are Mr. August. You are the champion of August. You won that.
Okay, good to know. But yeah, that fight, I mean, I was jumping and screaming in that fight. I mean, I wanted Ed Herman to win so bad. You know, anytime anybody I've trained with fights, or like, you know, I've had the opportunity to train with Ed and be in the same room with him, and he's helped me out with like a lot of techniques and stuff. And so that one was, closer than just two random guys fighting. But I've always been a fan of Ed Herman, and, people need to look at the fighter's perspective. Even Mike Rodriguez himself said he does not hold it against Ed Herman that the referee made that giant blunder.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Make no mistake. I respect Ed Herman more now than I did even before that fight. When you come back from what should have been a TKO loss and win a fight, that's the most impressive thing that you could do. I'm super impressed. That's like if you would have gotten hit by an illegal downstrike, took the res time, and came back and won the fight. But even more so, because, I mean, technically he was near finished. And the fact that he came back from that with a submission victory, Ed Herman did his job to the T. He's the man. I'm pissed at the ref. You got one job. Ed Herman's got 1,000 jobs. All right, he's got to train. He's got to cut weight. He's got to do all these things. You got one job, and that's to watch a fight. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah. And so that, that's where the scoring and the what they're talking about with the replay cam and everything can be modified. But the fight in its entirety was what I call pure heart from Ed Herman. To be beat like that, he was beat to the body. He was nearly TKO'd before that ref made the mistake. And he still was able to submit the guy in that devastating fashion. And for sure, he would have broke that dude's arm if Mike Rodriguez's arm, if Mike Rodriguez wouldn't have tapped, And that Kimura is not an easy Kimura to get. People that get Kimuras, a lot of times you're going to get it from the top and side control, or you're going to get it from closed guard, which you don't really see that much anymore. He got it from half guard when he was being pounded out against the cage. He laced up his arm. Mike Rodriguez defended the correct way and tucked his arm, and Ed Herman got his arm out just enough to where he could expose it. And when that arm came out, I was jumping and screaming, and he was just, and at that point, the only thing you can do is what Mike Rodriguez did was rolled out of it. And then you put yourself in a really worse position on the back. So that was just a really, really cool fight to see. I don't know if Ed Herman should be 185. At 185, I think he had some more success at 185. But now at the later years of his career, I think it's probably harder for him to cut 185. He's even a big 205er. he's a big man. So yeah, hey, what about a rematch? Rematch it.
Why not? Yeah, no, Ed Herman did look like a big dude in that ring, in that fight. And yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Ed Herman's heart was on full display. And normally that half guard Kimura is used to sweep an opponent that's in mid passing is what I've always used it for is, oh, somebody's trying to pass from my half to his side. I'm gonna go ahead and try to lock up this desperation Kimura. And as they scramble their legs, I'm gonna use it to crank them over the top. Maybe I can end up inside mount top. But to like you said, to finish it, those angles are so weird, especially when you have the same side leg locked up as opposed to the opposite. Or the opposite leg locked up, you can get a little bit more torque. But with that same side leg, you sometimes even have to go 2-on-1 on the wrist as opposed to actually finishing it in the key lock style. And it gets sloppy and ugly sometimes. But Ed Herman did a masterful technique, super clean. And I wouldn't be surprised if Rodriguez does have some residual injury, maybe not a bone break per se, but his shoulder was in a really bad position for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some cartilage or maybe some, rotator cuff issues or something that might be on the horizon for him, because that was a nasty submission.
Shoulder was jacked, but let's not take anything away from Mike Rodriguez. He's the real deal. Mike Rodriguez is the real deal. Whenever I picked the other guy, I think he was a Russian guy against Mike Rodriguez. You picked Rodriguez, and he just clobbered the dude. And then he did what he did to Ed Herman, even against the cage. That's Ed Herman's strongest position. Is Randy Couture's old school dirty boxing. Mike Rodriguez was controlling a lot of those exchanges. So Mike Rodriguez is the real deal. I want to see him turn around fast and get another fight.
Oh, yeah. I am not leaving the Mike Rodriguez hype train. I'm still all aboard. And Dana White even said it, too. He's like, hey, man, I'm treating this as if Mike Rodriguez won the fight. I'm booking him a higher competitor fighter. He said the referee's call was, and I quote, the worst thing he's seen in a long time. Now, that does sound like a very Trump sentence where he's just saying big words, big, huge words, the worst things in the world. But he was pissed, and there was no hiding that. But he wasn't, like he said, he wasn't pissed at Ed. He wasn't pissed at Mike. He was pissed at the referee.
Everybody loves Ed Herman, though.
That's everybody loves Ed Herman. He's a staple. He's one of those fighters that just conducts himself with so much mastery inside, outside the ring. Just a respectful and humble guy. I mean, it's hard not to root for him. And in my case, it was even harder because I'm actually an Ed Herman fan. But I smell hype train with Mike Rodriguez. I think he's going to go a lot further in the UFC with his current momentum. And I don't think that this is going to stop him as long as he stays injury-free. I don't think mentally it's going to be an issue either. I think that he'll be able to pull out of that. Fight before that, we had Alan Patrick, Bobby Green, 3-round decision. We both chose Bobby Green. We both saw it happening. I don't think we got any surprises there. What do you think, Don?
No surprises there. Just an absolute. Bobby Green just picked Alan Patrick apart. Bobby Green's been so active. Alan Patrick's been on the shelf for a while. I think it's the UFC's way of trying to weed out Alan Patrick in that fight. And Bobby Green wasn't. His post-fight speech was. He wasn't too happy about his performance, but he has nothing to be ashamed of. That's
standard. That's standard for Bobby Green. If you look at all of his post-fight interviews, he's pretty hard on himself. I think he's just a self-loathing guy, and that might be his fuel. I know in comedy we have people that hate themselves, and that's why they're funny. So maybe him hating himself is why he's a good fighter. So, it's kind of one of those recipes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. To some people's taste, it's a little salty, but to the people making it, it's just right. So I think he's just working with what motivates him really well. I do know when it comes to me in the gym, when I'm trying to lose weight, it's all you fat pig, you disgusting, all in my headspace, just because that's what motivates me to push through that wall. So maybe this is what he's doing. The public flagellation is there to just make him more impassioned about his next fight.
It was a real championship mindset. I agree with you on that. A real championship mindset.
Yeah, there's no room for satisfaction in the climb. Only in the rest. And the fight before that, the first of the main card, we had Kyle Nelson and Billy Quarantino. You had Nelson, I had Quarantino. I got a victory on this one. Surprisingly, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty surprised with the outcome. The fight up into that point looked pretty up and up. Quarantino had a little bit more of an edge, but not by much. But then, a knockout kind of puts an end to the judge's job. Did you see anything in that fight that jumped out at you?
Not really. Just same as you said.
Yeah. Two guys testing each other. It was a great test. It was fun to watch, but I didn't see a high level of skill from either fighter, if I'm being completely honest. I saw some small sloppy mistakes, but I mean, a great fight. As I'm talking as an observer, not as somebody who's actually in the ring. So of course I would look way worse. But there were a couple of holes on both sides of the fight. I think both fighters can go back and look at the reel of that fight and learn a lot and come out better fighters after that. It was a fun one, but at times it did look a little sloppy. Time to clean it up, Quarantillo. You could do better. So we got a lot to talk about as far as what's coming up. Do you want to talk about the bare knuckle first? Bare knuckle and Bellator, and then we'll talk about what's coming up?
Let's do it.
All right. So real quick, breezing through. Bellator, it looks like the original main event that was scheduled to go on got rescheduled. But we did still get some really good fights. We also did get Neiman Gracie and John Fitch fighting. Neiman caught him in a knee bar, and it rolled out to a heel hook. And he defeated John Fitch, to which John Fitch decided to hang up the gloves permanently. So John Fitch is now retiring. What do you think about that, Don?
It was a good fight. It looked to me like John Fitch had already planned his retirement beforehand. It looked like a very playful fight. It looked more like sparring to me. It looked like John Fitch, whenever he realized he wasn't going to beat Neiman Gracie, he wasn't going to put Neiman Gracie away, he wasn't going to dominate any of the exchanges. Neiman Gracie kept coming back with all of John Fitch's attempts with takedowns and with the striking. Then at one point, John Fitch just kind of basically gave it up. And, at the end, when Neiman Gracie took John Fitch's leg, John Fitch kind of smiled a little bit like, yeah, I know you got me. That doesn't happen in championship level dog fights when both guys are trying to pay their rent. That happens when a veteran's fighting an up-and-comer. And he kind of threw that. But Neiman Gracie is probably one of the best Gracies right now that's on the scene. He's fought a lot of high-level guys. He went 5 rounds with Douglas Lima, the champion. So Neiman Gracie, and he's young too. Neiman Gracie is going to be a guy that we're going to look out for as the next Gracie contender. If Neiman Gracie wins the title, that's a big problem for the UFC, because when you have a Gracie that's at the top of another organization, the UFC has trouble because everybody knows Gracie. And in Strikeforce, the same thing happened with Roger Gracie. Roger Gracie dominated Strikeforce, and then Strikeforce was absolved by the UFC. So that's a big gold nugget for Bellator to have Neiman Gracie, and to have Neiman Gracie doing so good. He's the next generation of Gracie fighters. He's very evolved. He's very well-rounded. But it was a great fight. He ended up going for several leg attempts, and then he ended up catching John Fitch in the knee bar and finishing him. It was a really good fight. And Bellator is coming up, man. Bellator gave UFC a run for their money this weekend. If it wasn't for Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill, I would have said Bellator had the better fights. I watched every single event. I literally had my laptop, I had my cell phone streaming on my TV, and I had my wife's cell phone. So she was mad at me because the whole the whole weekend was all about fights. But Bellator did a great job. Neiman Gracie did an amazing job.
Yeah, it was great to see John Fitch have fun in there again. I know his last couple fights have kind of looked like a bit of a struggle, and it was nice to see John in his element. It wasn't a swan song of a final performance, but it did look like a good way for him to wrap up his career, his strong career. John Fitch has had an amazing MMA career, and he should be going out with a smile on his face, and that's good to see. Because very few fighters, especially in his weight class, you get to see kind of go out like that. You see the Johnny Hendricks or Jimi Hendrix or Johnny Hendricks, and you see a couple other people in the class that Rory McDonald, people who didn't really age out of the fight game the way that they wanted to, and it was good for him to go out on his own terms, and it looked like that fight was pretty much that. It looked like it was him going out on terms that he was comfortable with, and that's awesome to see. We also had bare knuckle fighting championship going on. I'll go ahead and say it. We only had one fight that we focused on during the interview, the Kendall Grove one. You were right. It makes me sad. I feel a lot of ways about it. Kendall got his ass beat in the first round. Doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to say it. Doesn't feel good hearing it. Doesn't feel good seeing it, but it's true. Did you see any of the bare knuckle fights this weekend? You watched them all?
Yeah, I watched the final 3 matches. Yeah, the Kendall Grove and Hector Lombard fight. I thought Kendall would be able to jab him away and last a longer. I think we all did. Kendall didn't look like he was in the right headspace, I'll just say. I think Kendall could do a lot better if he was maybe a little more prepared for that type of fight. But who can be prepared for Hector Lombard, a little tank, throwing these giant hooks with no gloves on? He dropped him in round 1. He dropped him in round 2, and then he ended up finishing, I think, in round 2.
It was round 2. That's right. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Kendall didn't. I don't think Kendall really landed anything. Kendall just couldn't deal with the range on it. But again, I think Kendall could do a lot better if he trained for that fight. Maybe it looked like he didn't train as well as he could. Something was off on that fight.
He did look a little undisciplined. I noticed that too. It's hard to break down because bare knuckle FC is kind of like the Wild West, where you don't know what. With the UFC, there's some quality control where these guys are going through full camps and they're getting proper nutrition and they're doing things right. BKFC is kind of like where pride fighting was in that glory days of the mid to late 90s, where you're not sure what type of drug testing is really going on, and you're not sure what people are doing at their gyms, what kind of supplements they're taking, how they're eating, who they're working with. You don't really get any of this info, and it's because a lot of them are just kind of doing their own thing, especially the ones who came from the UFC that are able to use their name as a money making. Some of them are doing that, and they're not really training for their fights, especially for people who are hungry. And the last thing you want to do is go into a fist fight complacent. That's not a good emotion to have on your chest when you're trying to beat some dude up. But yeah, I agree.
That was good too. Let Me Bang Bro had a really great fight against Thiago Alves.
Yeah.
That was really, really cool to see. Let Me Bang. I didn't know Let Me Bang Bro had so much experience in BKFC. He's already had 6 bare knuckle fights. And Thiago Alves was able to implement his game plan. He was able to land a lot of really, really nice jabs. He was able to defend a lot of Julian Lane, Let Me Bang Bros strikes, and made for a great, great technical bare knuckle fight. And that was really, really, really cool to see. I think Thiago Alves is going to do very good in bare knuckle if he keeps fighting. He'll probably be the champ if he keeps fighting in bare knuckle.
Yeah, he's a fantastic fighter, and he's got the right skills necessary. Although it's really interesting if this trend follows. I'm really curious to see who's going to be joining the BKFC in the next 5 years, because their numbers are going up. That's undeniable. Their viewership has gone up. Their sponsors have gone up. You could tell in their show that the production level's gone up. They privatized their own companies, so they have all their fights streaming from their own app, which means that all of that revenue and ad stream goes directly to them. They're not worried about too much cable payouts or anything like that. They've got this direct stream of free economy. It's a pretty good business model. It's something that I'm sure the UFC is kind of jealous that they didn't think of first. Because if they had gone to a more private style of running things, they would be making a shit ton of money. We would be looking at a literal UFC channel, and not UFC Fight Pass. I'm talking like a UFC corporate cable channel that produces its own content 24/7. Because nobody could have seen the growth rate that the UFC had. Maybe an investor could have, but it's too late for that now. Now we're looking in the post days of how are we gonna put a saddle on this pony. And I think Bellator's got a really good, I think Bare Knuckle's got a really good model as far as keeping all that income in-house and keeping their quality in-house. Because if any place where the UFC has slipped, it's in the places where they have divvied out control to other people. In watching the fights, having to have the ESPN Plus app to watch some of those fights. I mean, that's kind of a hassle. Wouldn't it just be easier to turn it on TV to watch it, or just to click a link, or just to talk to your cable provider? But I think Bare Knuckles got the right idea, and I think we're going to be seeing some changes from UFC to adjust for it, because Bare Knuckle is going to be nipping at their heels next.
No doubt, and we probably will see a UFC channel in the future. That's a great point. The way that everything's going right now, the UFC is dominating not only combat sports, but a lot of other sports. So we'll see that. What worries me about BKFC is their payment structure. They're paying out a lot to get stars before they're at a mid-level, right? So BKFC just kind of out of nowhere started paying people like, we're going to pay you $100,000 a fight. We're going to pay you $20,000 a fight, but there's no income coming in. And then now they're kind of reversing it. So now they're kind of setting up all these things, like you said, the pay-per-view channel, which now I have BKFC. I'm paying like $3.99 a month to watch it. Don't tell my wife. You're watching this, baby. That's not true. I did not order.
Don't worry. Our girlfriends and wives aren't watching this. Your wife and my girlfriend is not watching this.
Yeah, but they'll still like it and share it, but they won't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they're great. They're fantastic people. Yeah, no, I would rather pay $3.99 for something that is extremely streamlined and know I'm going to get. I'm going to be honest. I'm an ESPN Plus subscriber. Man, is it just an issue sometimes to get to the fights? It's not as easy as they make it seem, and just keeping up and buying the pay-per-views is just, it's more of a hassle. I mean, yeah, sure, it's just a couple extra clicks and you got to read a couple things, but I'd rather not. I don't want to fight. I'd rather not. Does a streaming link make you do all these things? No. That's why people are pirating the fights. It's because they've just made it easier. People will pay for convenience. If you can make it easier, they'll pay for it.
That's a big problem for me too. Because I was I'm on all these different websites trying to watch all these fights, and I pay for all these fights, right? But the thing is just like, for me to stream ESPN on my screen, and then they're saying like error loading. ESPN hasn't figured it out yet. I liked it better when UFC was just on the other channels, to tell you the truth, and I just had to stream it on like whatever pirated thing. Hopefully they're not listening, but yeah, because now it's just a friggin' hassle, man. ESPN's, they need to fix it. They really need to fix it, especially if they have a huge deal with the UFC. They need to fix that.
Well, they really had it down with Spike TV off the go. When Spike TV and UFC were in partnership, man, what a beautiful symmetry that was. The fights came in perfect. You were able to keep up with it. They even did like little vignettes of 30-minute pre-fight, post-fight stuff here and there. It was wonderful. Then Fox got a hold of it and crapped all over it and added Stephen A. Smith and commentary breakdowns from people who draw X's and O's. then once they were done bastardizing this child, ESPN came in and they're like it's like a foster family where they want to do what's best for us, but they have no idea where we come from. So they have no idea how to treat us right. And that's what us MMA fans are experiencing, is we're experiencing sports people trying to dole out MMA. And MMA is not necessarily a sport like football, basketball, baseball, where you have jerseys and all these things to sell and all these other opportunities of income. We have a very niche fanship that has money that we spend money on, but really we just want more content. We don't, yeah, it's great. Sure, it's, yeah, whatever. We want fights. We want fights, and we want them now. And we want them at our fingertips. And
Yeah.
ESPN is still fumbling, no pun intended, still fumbling on how to give it to us properly. But hopefully they'll figure it out. I mean, I don't know how long the ESPN contract is, but it seems like they're at least trying to work out bugs. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next UFC card, we're going to go ahead and close with this, but what a way to close. Next UFC card we have coming up is September 19th, this Saturday. We have UFC Fight Night, Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley, a fight we've been waiting forever to see. If anything, if you ask me, this fight is like a year too late, but I'm still excited to see it. How do you feel about the fight?
Oh, dude. I mean, this fight there's so much backstory in this fight. You have to be a hardcore to really, really, really get into this fight. But at the same time, Colby Covington's now drawing in a whole different fan base. So it's really, really cool to see. A little backstory. I saw Colby Covington it was Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Johnson in Las Vegas live. And I got to see Colby Covington pre-fight. And this was his second fight in the UFC. He was fighting a Korean guy. Actually, it was Dong Young Kim.
Mm-hmm.
It was the judo guy, Dong Young Kim, who had already fought some of the best at 170. This was Colby's second fight, and he beat Dong Young Kim. But just watching Colby before the fight, the way that he warmed up and how focused he was before the fight, I got to see his little warm up and things like that. They don't let you do that anymore in the live events, but I just knew he was going to be a champion. The same way when I saw Frankie Edgar fight the first couple times, I just knew he was going to be a champion. And you just see the determination, you see the level of skill in the fighting, and you see in the early fights, normally when I can tell somebody's going to be a champion, it's in the early fights, they're as composed as a veteran. And Colby Covington showed that in his first couple fights, and he's done that every single time. The only thing that worries me now about Colby is he changed camps from American Top Team in Florida to MMA Masters. MMA Masters is a really great camp. Don't get me wrong. They're the same guys who brought Ricardo Lamas from nowhere to where Ricardo Lamas went. And they have a lot of really, really good guys. They're probably, I'd say, the third best camp in Florida right now. And Florida's one of the MMA hubs. So you have ATT, you have Black Zillions, which is now Henry Hoof's team, and that's where like Kamaru Usman trains. And then you have MMA Masters, and MMA Masters now has taken over Colby Covington. They've changed his style a little bit. That's what worries me about this fight with Colby, because if Colby was still at ATT, I'd say Colby Covington, no doubt, is going to take out Tyron Woodley, right? But now he's with a different camp. But all that being said, when Colby Covington fought Kamaru Usman, the battle that they had showed me that Colby Covington is a champ. You know what I mean? All the smack that he talks, whatever, And Tyron Woodley, we haven't seen that much from Tyron. We know that he can fight with anybody in the world. We know he can fight with Stephen Thompson. He can fight with everybody. But Colby is it's just a veteran going down a bit, and it's an up and comer coming up a bit. And I think that's the shift that we're just going to see Kobe just a little hungrier for that victory. And I think he's going to eke it out. I don't believe it's going to be a knockout, and I don't think it's going to be a unanimous, but I think it's going to be a split by Kobe Covington in round 5.
All right. I'm going to go the opposite. And I agree with you. Kobe Covington has always impressed with his abilities. He is a type fighter. He's one of those fighters that you don't really appreciate unless you have an eye for the sport. Much like a Chael Sonnen or like a Jake Shields or Ryan Bader, fighters that have a massive amount of technique and knowledge of what techniques work for them, but sometimes may not be the most exciting to watch. However, Kobe does have that high volume striking in his favor. Not really a power striker, but he does blanket his fighters a lot with strikes. I think we haven't seen the best out of Tyron Woodley in the past year. And I think a lot of that is due to a lack of motivation. I don't think he was very motivated to fight Kamaru because I think that he, in some way, knew that Kamaru is the future. Especially when he rode that wave and felt it, I think he was kind of getting under the impression of understanding, like, all right, my time is creeping up, and do what I need to do to feel complete in my MMA career. And fighting Kobe Covington is one of those things. I think Tyron Woodley is going to be impressively motivated for this fight because he hates Kobe. He hates his guts. And some of the hatred in MMA is manufactured, and some of it's to sell tickets, and others you can really tell that people don't like each other. And the great thing about the fight game is when people don't like each other, they punch each other in the face, and they do it in front of you for views. And I couldn't be happier. These two guys don't like each other. I think Tyron hates Kobe more than Kobe hates Tyron. And honestly, I think that's going to be the edge factor. I think that's going to be the one thing that Tyron needs to really pull that beast out of him once more. I also wouldn't be surprised if Tyron calls it a career. If he has an impressive victory, I see him continuing. But if he has an edge out or a loss, I wouldn't be surprised if he loses gloves in the ring because it's been a rough year for Tyron. Not just fight-wise, but health-wise. He's had a lot of injuries. He's had a few surgeries in the past couple years. And, he rode the championship train for a while. He beat some who's. And now I think he's seeing a weight class that he no longer feels relevant in. But I'm going to pick Woodley in this fight. A 5-round decision as well. I think it's going to be a close one for the first 4 rounds. And I think Tyron's going to have that extra gas tank that Kobe also has too. But I think Tyron's going to surprise him with a little bit extra juice.
Well, it's interesting because Kobe has shown he can weather the storm. He had that broken jaw with Kamaru Usman in that 5-rounder for the belt. But T. Wood, I only see T. Wood winning if he can knock out Kobe. Because at this point in both of their careers, Kobe just has shown that he has a gas tank for these 5-round fights, much like Tyrone did earlier when he was going after the belt, But it's just a different time. A few things that Tyrone has in his favor. One is he's still with American Top Team, so that means American Top Team knows what Kobe's weaknesses are. And Kobe's weaknesses are going to be the fact that he's just going to keep coming forward and trying to take you down. No matter what shot he takes, you can hit him with everything and he's still going to come forward. But Tyrone needs to knock out Kobe or stun him and submit him because Tyrone's better than Kobe on the ground. That's one thing I will tell you. We've seen Tyrone in some bad situations, and we've seen Tyrone snatch on guillotines and all types of submissions. Tyrone's beat some of the best in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. And Kobe has too. Kobe also beat Damian Maia, so I'm not going to take that away from him. But it wasn't the same way that Tyrone beat Andre Galvão back in Strikeforce.
Right.
So, but we're talking about fights that happened years ago. This fight is going to be, like you said, there's a lot of hype. But I don't think Kobe cares about any of the BS that he has the Conor McGregor effect where he's going to talk a lot of smack before the fight, And after the fight, he's going to shake the guy's hand. They're going to say, hey, bro, it's all good. They're going to smile. And,
fight game, yeah.
yeah. So, but I think Tyrone's carrying more of the shit talking in his head than Kobe is. So it's going to be a great fight. I'm going to be on my edge of my seat on that one.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a barn burner for sure. And I think that internal voice in Tyron's head can either be a motivator or a deferral. I agree with that, where it could either be something that he turns and uses or something that damns him. Because we've seen him lose focus before too, and that's not a good sight. The fight before that, we're going to have Donald Dad Cerrone versus Nico Price. You got Cerrone, I got Price. I'm picking Price just because I'm looking at momentums here. Donald Cerrone, unfortunately, coming off a loss, a bad knockout. He's had a lot of damage in the past in the past year, and I know he took a little bit of time off, but time doesn't heal all wounds. I think that Nico Price probably has a better advantage of fighting a tired and more beat up Cerrone. What do you think, Don?
Who knocked out Cerrone?
Oh, I don't know if it was his last fight that was a knockout, but of course we had the Conor McGregor knockout still.
Yeah. Was it Gaethje? I think also knocked him out. Somebody else knocked him out. But yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Nico Price is a poor man's Donald Cerrone in my mind.
That should be his shirt. That's hilarious.
They're both warriors. They're both guys that'll take a lot of damage. Nico Price is just a little reckless. He's one of the guys that he'll fight reckless, and he'll fight the last 2 rounds. He'll brawl out the last 2 rounds and get a fight bonus, where Donald Cerrone gets a fight bonus just because that's who he is. That's how he fights. Donald Cerrone has way more technique. If Donald Cerrone loses this fight, I think he should retire. I don't think that he should keep fighting if he loses Nico Price, because Donald Cerrone's went toe-to-toe with some of the best in the world, and Nico Price just isn't it.
Right. I understand that view, but let's look at I want to look at Cerrone's previous record. So when he went on the win streak, he beat Mike Perry, Alexander Hernandez, and Al Iaquinta, which was an awesome fight. That was just textbook Cerrone there. But then we have a loss to Tony Ferguson in round 2, a loss to Justin Gaethje in round 1, a knockout loss to Conor McGregor in round 1, and then he lost to Anthony Pettis most recently in a 3-round decision. So with that type of halt to momentum, with age creeping up, I don't know. I think Nico Price has got a lot more to win, and I think that Donald Cerrone, like you said, is on his way out. And
yeah, but
I know
Donald Cerrone's, those guys are all champs, right?
True.
These guys are all championship level fighters, and it was kind of like how I was looking at the Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill fight, a lot of the ways too. And this fight could play out the same way that fight played out. Michelle Waterson had her losses against champions, and a championship level fighter is different than I don't know who Nico Price fought. I think he fought Tim Means. He's had some battles. He fought the one Brazilian guy who's a freaking animal that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The one Brazilian, what is his name? He's a leg kicker guy.
It was Vincent Luque.
Yeah, Luque. He
Yeah,
fought Luque. He lost to Luque, which was expected. But Donald Cerrone is a different beast. That's what I'm saying. Like, Donald Cerrone will beat anybody in the top 10 on a good day. He'll lose them on a good day. But Nico Price probably couldn't fight the guys in the top 10 on his best day. He's just not there yet. And part of it's his reckless fighting style too. So, but it'll be a good fight. It's MMA.
right.
Nico will come out with a flying knee and knock him out.
I agree. Who knows? Maybe it's his turn to maybe it's Nico's time to turn the corner. Maybe it's his round out, or maybe you're right. Maybe he's just a mid-level gatekeeper fighter that's just there to test the talent and see where their level is. But either way, Donald Cerrone is going to have his handful because, I mean, I think he's at the place now where we do need to test his talent to see where he is because after this win streak and then loss streak, we really have no idea where to put him. I mean, does he belong in the top 10? Maybe. Top 15? Probably. Top 20? Yeah, but should you still be fighting at that point if top 10 isn't really in the discussion? Like, it's at what point do you decide to no longer be the practice quarterback and do you just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to coaching. You know, like, and Cerrone is definitely pushing that line as far as I can go. All power to him. He's a champion. He deserves it. And this is money time. When he was at the pinnacle of WEC and all that stuff, there wasn't even talks of the type of figures that they're going through right now. So I think it's a great time for Donald Cerrone to make that money. Make it while you can, dude. Don't hurt yourself. Before that, we're going to have Kazmat Chimaev versus Gerald Mearchant. You got Mearchant. I got Chimaev. You want to explain your choice there, Don?
That's a tough choice right there, man. That's a really, really, really tough choice. Kazmat, it's Kazmat, right?
Yeah.
He's had such a meteoric rise in the past 2 to 3 months. Mearshot's had a lot more fights. Mearshot has a very, very good camp in Duke Rufus's camp. They're a striking-based camp. I think that they might be able to crack the code. That's a hard one to pick because when you look at the way that Kazmat's dominated every single fight, I mean, he just make these guys look like it's just nothing. Mm-hmm. It's another day. But I'm going to pick Mearshart based on experience, nothing else.
I think that the reason that he might win the victory will also be his undoing. There's enough info on him to do research. Kazmat, you don't have anything. You have one style of victory against several people. And if he does have another gear, if he does have another mode of operation, oh man, is Gerard totally screwed. Because I guarantee you they're plotting for that cuff, that cuff up style, that was it the Dagestani cuff, or just the one-on-one, pretty much is what it is, wrestling one-on-one. If he shows another look and comes out with something different, I really don't think that Mearshot's camp has trained for that recently. I think that they might have a one-dimensional game plan just because that's how I would train to fight somebody like Kazmat. If he does one thing so superiorly, train that one thing. Make sure that he doesn't do it that much more superior to you. But we don't know what other tricks he has. And we do know that he's healthy. We do know that he's confident. And we do know that he's talented. And those are three things that I think are going to go into the pot for him winning. I think he's got the confidence to do what he needs to do. And I think he's got the momentum. And I think there's somebody in the weight class that can put him away at this time, at this early of his career. But I don't know if it's Mearshart. I don't know if he's the guy.
Yeah. Mearshart is a BJJ black belt.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's a good BJJ black belt. And he has more experience in Mearshart than Kazmat. And when you look back at Khabib's first fights in the UFC, one guy that gave Khabib a real run for his money was Gleison Tibau. And Gleison was a BJJ black belt. He was seasoned. Khabib wasn't. And that fight could have possibly, well, it was in Khabib's favor, but it was a really tough fight for Khabib. And I see this similar thing happening with Kazmat. You know, if Kazmat comes in hot like he does and he can't put away Mearshart, he can't do anything to Mearshart on the ground, I think it's going to be longer. But this is going to be a fight where I'm going to look at Kazmat and say he's the real deal or he's not the real deal, because Mearshart is the real deal. He's had 4 or 5 UFC fights. He's a BJJ black belt. He's weathered the storm. So if Kazmat can't put him out, it's going to be a tough night for Kazmat, and I think it'll probably either be a decision by Kazmat or a submission by Mearshart, and I'm going with Mearshart on that.
Not me. I'm throwing the coals on the hype train, keeping this thing going. I'm calling knockout by the end of the first round by Kazmat. In similar fashion, not the same, but similar. Before that, we have Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann. You got Spann, I got Walker. I think it's Walker's time to make a comeback. He had an upset in his last, or at least he would describe it as an upset in his last fight. And that was his comeback fight after his shoulder injury, where he had hurt it doing a victory dance. So before that, I think Walker was an amazing talent. I think that his shoulder injury actually really hurt his progression heavily. But I think that they might be giving him this fight as an opportunity because he is an exciting fighter, although Ryan Spann is no slouch. He's just not as explosive as a fighter as Johnny Walker. Although I do think it would make for a bad matchup for Johnny. I think he's got a great camp. I think he's got a lot of the tangibles. So I'm going with Johnny Walker. You got Spann. What's up, Don?
Yeah, Spann's a really, really good fighter. Spann is a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Johnny Walker came onto the scene like just fireworks. He came on knocking dudes out. He was exciting. He was like that other Brazilian that we had seen, Silva, the other day, where he just comes out with all these, crazy techniques. But something's not right with Johnny Walker. I don't know what it is. Something's just not, for me. I get the feeling for Johnny Walker that he's just kind of crumbling right now. We'll see it. We'll see it in this fight. If he takes out Ryan Spann, then he's going to be able to keep going through the rankings. But I think that there's something other than his shoulder going on. I think it's mental with Johnny Walker. I think when he couldn't beat his last fight, I think that's going to play on him. And I think Ryan Spann's going to grind him out in this fight.
That should be a fun one to watch. Either way, it's going to be exciting. Here, let's go ahead and speed this up because I know we're about to finish up. Mackenzie Dern and Rhonda Marcos before that. We both got Mackenzie Dern. I feel like, it kind of speaks for itself. Rhonda Marcos is a 10-9 fighter. What else is there to say? Dude, you're 10-9. I mean, literally, in any other weight class, this would be unheard of. You're like, 10-9? Why are you in the UFC? So I think we're going to see, unless she's lost her first 8 fights, I really don't see how you have a 10-9 record and are fighting in the UFC or continue to fight. I would probably quit if I had a 10-9 record. I'm just being honest with you. If I went into a comedy room, all right, if I went to a comedy club and I was like, there's a 54% chance I'm going to succeed at this, I would quit comedy. Because you know what that makes you? A shitty comedian. I'm not saying that she's a shitty fighter. I'm saying that if you're a comedian that succeeds that much, you are a shitty comedian. So I'm going with Mackenzie Dern. I feel like you feel the same way, correct?
Yeah, I totally feel like the same way. Mackenzie is such a hero for women's jiu-jitsu. Mackenzie Dern was one of the first ladies who beat Gabby Garcia. Gabby Garcia is an ultra heavyweight in jiu-jitsu, like an Amazon Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter who's giant. And Mackenzie's just a normal-sized lady, and she was able to beat Gabby Garcia and have this amazing career in jiu-jitsu. One of the best female fighters in all of Brazilian jiu-jitsu to come over to MMA. She's had other Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners figure her out. So that's Mackenzie Dern. She's had some other ladies that put on a different pace. I will say with Rhonda, she's been looking better every time I see her fight. She's been showing improvements and she's been evolving. She is 10-9, which is, terrible record. But, Mackenzie has to win this fight. Mackenzie has to win this fight to stay in the UFC, to keep going for the title, and to keep her, her fame going, to keep everything going. Mackenzie has to win this. So all the pressure's on Mackenzie, but, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Ronda did something, maybe, a knockout or eked out a decision, maybe figures out Mackenzie, because Ronda is no slouch. She's very good on the ground too. Ronda Marcos is good on the ground. She has a lot of experience against high-level competition. So it's going to be a fun fight, but I'm going to look at Mackenzie Dern putting her away in probably round 2 via submission.
So you said you wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I would be damn shocked if that happens. If that happens, that would, I feel like I would then believe that I'm living in an alternate universe and that nothing is right. Purple's blue, heads is tails. No, I understand that she definitely has improved, especially, and she's probably earned her spot on the roster. But 10-9, I don't know. And then before that, of course, we have Kevin Holland and Darren Stewart. Should be a great fight off the bat. I believe you picked Stewart, right?
Yes.
We both did. Yeah. Just a more explosive, heavier fighter, plays a lot of pressure, and knocks people out convincingly. So I got Stewart as well. Any other reason other than the fact that he's got dynamite in his fist on?
That's really it.
Yeah, that's the amazing deciding factor. Well,
that fight could go either way, like all fights. But yeah, I'm looking for Darren Stewart to put him away early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's it for episode 11. We covered all our bases here. Make sure you tune in next week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Pacific time. We will be going over what will be happening this Saturday, which is going to be an amazing set of events. We'll also be talking about the next UFC main event. That would be UFC 253. It's going to be Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa, Dominic Reyes and Jan Blachowicz, and some other amazing fights. And we got Diego Sanchez in the prelims for that. What? Crazy fights going on this month. I'm super excited. Can't wait for it. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel, Stoner vs. Stoner. Make some comments. Watch our previous videos, just so you want to see how consistent we are, especially if you're a betting person. You want to know which one to side with. That's the best way to see how consistent we are. Tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your auntie. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff at Chino Bra, ChinoBrah. Where can our listeners find you, Don?
Find me at DStoner_LWJJ, Lone Wolf Jiu-Jitsu, on Instagram, Don Stoner on Facebook, and Stoner versus Stoner if you want to hear the MMA insights. And yeah, guys, I mean, as far as this podcast goes, when I call a fight and when Chino calls a fight, I mean, we're looking at their styles. A lot of other betting sites are going to be looking at win-loss record and things like that. I'm looking at if somebody, always gets armbarred in their fights and they're fighting somebody who has a good armbar. That's how I'm calling fights. So, and that's what we're doing. So it's pretty different. So if you guys can give us a like and a share, big thanks. And, we're putting a lot into this.
And I'm up in their Instagram seeing if their cousin died or if whatever's going on in their life. We're all keeping close tabs on them. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in again. We'll see you next week. Tell your friends, write in the comments what you like about the show or don't like. Maybe we'll change it. And you know what? Write your predictions on our page too. If you are right a lot, we'll give you a mention. And if you're right more than everybody else, we'll let them know that you're superior. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week. Once again, enjoy the fights. Aloha.